So I've had this Creality Filament Dryer 2.0 for roughly a year, and it's got some things that I love it. I really do. But there's some things that y'all need to watch out for. I thought I'd kind of show you the things I do like about it, some of the things I don't like about it, and show you why and when I would recommend one. So first thing is it's not necessarily a problem, it's just kind of annoying, is the user interface is kind of janky. So you can see I'm scrolling up and it kind of goes down to the time. Vice versa, you scroll down and it eventually goes up to the temperature. It's not the most responsive thing in the world. But I mean, whenever you're doing it, I typically set it for 24 hours. So it's just scroll it up. As you can see, it's kind of finicky. Scroll up to 24 and let her rip. And that kind of brings us to the second point, is this thing is loud. See, I've got a whole room, it just kind of sits off to it by itself, so it doesn't drive me crazy. Like even this Ender 3 has got a fan. I don't have it running right now for your ears, but it's the part cooling fan makes an absolute racket. These two things teaming up, it's a madhouse in this room. But I mean, it's sealed off to itself, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you've got this thing in your bedroom in a small office, I could see you driving. It could drive you crazy. All right, another huge thing, something that's kind of the downfall of this thing, is where they put the hole for the filament to go out of. So as you can see, it's all the way in the back, and it's got this little rubber grommet on it. Well, whenever you don't have a little Bowden tube set up like I've got going on over here, the filament itself will get caught on that grommet, and it'll just sit there and it'll just pick the lid up. It'll just non-stop just kind of sit here all night. And again, with that fan ripping, it's pretty loud. It's kind of goofy. Not only that, but you kind of have to angle your filament dryer 180 degrees away from the printer, like so, if you're not running some weird Bowden tube like I am. And even then, you kind of have to have a dual tooth extruder to kind of get that setup going. So it's a little janky. It slaps that little roof around. It acts kind of goofy, but hey, it works. It gets the filament dry. All right, showing the good though. Scrolling up here. First thing I love about this thing, it goes up to 65 degrees Celsius. And in this household, we're a Pet G family. I've trained almost exclusively Pet G. And that is like the perfect temperature to dry it on. I've saved so many spools, but just throwing them in here, throw them on for 24 hours, and by the end of that, it's ready to go. So not just that, but like some spools just come in soaked. Like I don't know what's up with these Creality spools, the Pet G. I won't ever be buying any more. But yeah, you can hear them popping even after they've been dried. So they are a mess, like just a huge awful mess if you try printing without drying them off at all. So yeah, with this dryer, it's a game changer. Actually, getting to the inside of the dryer too is how well it lets the filament rotate. Sorry about our foliage. But you can kind of see the system it's got going on. It's got these little bearings that they ride on. This thing is super smooth. As far as how it actually dries, so it's got the fan in the back that pushes out and up around the lid, and then it pulls vacuum down here on the bottom. And I imagine, I guess the heating element's down there somewhere. And then it's got this foamy insulation reflective tape on the bottom. And I've had, again, great success with how well it actually dries filament. So another thing I really like about this thing is, at the time of review, this thing is $40. And around that price point, everything's kind of starts to get some weird jankiness, some kind of strange quirks you gotta deal with. And I think of all the ones with all the quirks, this one has the most, I guess, live with the bull quirks, I guess you could say. And there are things you can do that kind of make it work better for you. And I guess if you're set up right, it really won't bother you at all. You'll say the setup that I'm currently running, that I've had a lot of luck with, starts off at this dual tooth extruder. It's just a generic one off of Amazon. But I've got a Bowden tube feeding it that runs all the way through the grommet and into the dryer itself. And it just kind of sits with the filament. And I find that this is pretty sufficient for helping it feed into that hole effectively. And then inside this little spool, I typically keep one of these. It's just a thing I've 3D printed that holds little reusable silica drying beads. And whenever the dryer itself isn't actually running, when you store it in the box, it'll keep a spool nice and dry for quite a long time. I don't really ever have to worry about it. And even then, whenever I go to print something, I just let it rip. I just turn it on for 24 hours, let it go. So at the end of the day, I absolutely 100% recommend it if you can, one, either do the setup, or two, you don't have it in your room or somewhere where it can just drive you absolutely crazy and you don't mind it being a little jank with the lid flopping up and down and it causing a racket. If you're not self-conscious about having a little ghetto setup, it works, man. It gets the job done. It's got a recommendation from me, but again, you got to know what you're getting yourself into.